Welcome to the full moon lunar eclipse video for September 2025. We are now in eclipse season. It is time to buckle up, release control, and enjoy the ride. I'm Sarah with Life with Training Wheels, and I'm here to help empower you to release any victim mentality and realize that life is happening for you, not to you, and that there is always something to be grateful for. And when you can have that mindset shift, life becomes so much more magical. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. And if you like my content, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, or comment. I'd love to read your comments and see what you think and how you're handling all of this big energy. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning. That's what I like to do if you have been here on my channel. Okay, so what are full moons? What do we do during full moons? Well, they're a time of both culmination and release. They're a time when the sun is opposite the moon in the sky, so both of our luminaries are opposite on polar ends. So it's a time to make sure that we aren't just focusing on all of our energy on one part of our lives, and that we are remaining balanced. It's a time of culmination and cultivation. It's a time when things that we planted at the last new moon cycle should be coming to fruition, and now it's time to take a step back, see what's working, see what's not, weed out what's not, so that we can move forward and continue on our path of growth. So that's what we've got, and then we add on the eclipse energy, which basically supercharges everything. So an eclipse is basically when the full or new moon is conjunct with either the north node or the south node. So what are the nodes? So they're not planets actually, but they're mathematical points where the Earth's path around the sun interacts with the moon's path around the Earth. So they're these very special points, and they have a lot of bearing on our own personal lives as well as the direction that the collective is going. So when the Earth, Sun, and Moon all line up at this exact point, the gravity from the Sun and Moon is at its peak, and the Earth's magnetic field gets an unusual alignment with the Sun. So it's pretty magical. And although the science doesn't directly talk about it, because astrology is a pseudoscience like all natural medicine is too, I would say that this is why eclipses tend to coincide with natural disasters, which we might get to in this video, or I might do another video about that. But it's also why it has a big effect on us, right? Because the moon has a big effect on us with its gravitational pull. It affects the tides. It affects all those things. And then when you add the geomagnetic aspect of the sun, it's like a double whammy of energy that the Earth is getting, but our bodies are getting as well. So this is kind of why it's considered a reset, and that fated events and paths of our lives change during these times as well if it is interacting with our natal birth chart in a very specific way. It's kind of like everything, like the sun and moon, our emotions, our soul's path, our drive, like all of these things are aligning and shaking us up to move us in the direction that we are supposed to go in. So that's a little bit of the science behind it as far as I understand it. So now we're going to get into it, and I have the chart pulled up on the screen. So we have Pisces. The full moon is in Pisces over here. And this is the area of our chart that is being lit up. This is where wherever this falls in your chart, this is where you're going to really want to pay attention and figure out how this is affecting you. And I will get in at the end of this video to how it is affecting each of the rising signs as well. Also, if you need help figuring out where this is in your chart, I have a video that I'll link up here that you can check out, which is a video on how to pull up your natal chart. And once you pull it up, you should be able to find this glyph, which equals Pisces, in your chart and figure out which of the houses it is in. And that should give you an idea. If you want more information on how to look at your chart, I do have a 6-week beginner astrology course called Your First Astrology Course, starting on September 21st at the next eclipse, where I basically take you from zero, from pulling up your natal chart, to learning what all these glyphs and the language of astrology is, with a little cheat sheet. I teach you about the planets, the signs, the houses, how to put them all together and make sense of them. We will go over your big three and what those mean for you. And then we'll also finally talk about how to take videos like this and apply them to you on a more personal level. So, if you want to check that out, the link for that will be in the description below. It's on sale for early bird pricing right now through the 21st, and then once class starts, the price will go up. Okay, so now let's just take a moment to talk about what Pisces represents. So Pisces is mutable water, so not fixed water or cardinal water. So think fixed water like ice. Cardinal water maybe like the beginning of a river or something like that. Mutable water is more like the ocean, like the river flowing to the ocean. So it's boundaryless, and Pisces is known for its boundarylessness. So in our own chart, wherever Pisces falls does tend to show where we may need some more boundaries in our life. So the other things that it represents, and this is kind of on a collective level, but personally as well, so it governs the unseen and hidden realms. So like secrets, hidden enemies, conspiracies, covert operations, the subconscious mind, our dreams, so literally our dreams when we're asleep, our fantasies. It rules over sleep and sleep conditions, and conditions of altered consciousness, so whether that's through hypnosis, meditation, anesthesia, or if we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol, those types of things. It also governs healing and suffering. So think those types of institutions that operate, and those types of places that operate kind of outside of society, so they're not seen in society in your day-to-day world. So think like prisons, hospitals, sanctuaries and retreat centers, refugee camps, charities, orphanages, shelters, mental health and psychological struggles overall. And then it also, with healing and suffering, because of the lack of boundaries, it also governs disease spread and epidemics, which is why it's often linked to pandemics, because of the lack of boundaries. It also governs like our autoimmune conditions, because that's like self versus not self, and the boundaries between those two things get a little confused in autoimmune conditions. And then viruses and toxins and parasites, things like that. Pisces also rules art and imagination. It's a very, very creative sign. So things like film, photography, music, poetry, virtual reality, anything like that. It also rules the oceans and liquids. So like oceans, seas, rivers, flooding, oil, chemicals, gases, shipping, fishing, whaling, cruise ships, and submarines, those types of things. And it's interesting to note because yesterday I learned about a magnesium chemical explosion in Evansville, Indiana, where they had a shelter in place because of a chemical gas explosion that cannot be put out by water, which is kind of also very much this Neptune, which also rules oceans and liquids and gases and things like that, and Aries, which is fire. So the astrology doesn't lie. It really does show us these. It doesn't show the exact things, but it shows us the potential and potentiality for things to happen. So then Pisces is also about loss, release, and dissolution. So endings, transitions, things dissolving back into the whole, mourning, grief, martyrdom, sacrifice, exile, retreats and seclusions, addictions, overdoses, and the loss of self. So like ego death type situations. And some of those things are good, some of those things are not so good. There is a spectrum of every planet and every sign. And then so it also rules mysticism and collective spirit, right? So it rules kind of like a lot of religion and spiritual beliefs. It rules mystics and mediums and channelers and prophecy and visions and dreams, like we talked about. It rules miracles, right? Because that's like, where do miracles come from? How do they happen? It rules movements of mass spiritual revival or collective hysteria, like the herd mentality, the herd mass psychology, and what the collective mood is. And then on a more personal level, with the imagination and inspiration, any artistic or creative endeavors, if you're feeling like a mystic, a dreamer, it rules your intuition and like any visions you have that might come from a higher place. So it could be, depending on where and how Pisces lands in your chart, that this solar eclipse activates some of these more psychic type senses, right? Our connection to the other realms that are only felt and not seen. It also rules dissolution of ego, so surrender and letting go of control and trusting something bigger than ourselves. And with that dissolution of ego, releasing pride, control, and our old wounds. And it where Pisces is, it could be where you're being asked to practice more faith, trust, and flow. Also on a more personalism, on the more shadow side, it could indicate where we have more escapism and illusion. So where we have a tendency to avoid and numb out, to daydream. It rules over our addictions and denial of certain things. So personally, it shows where you may be tempted to escape instead of confronting reality, especially right now. And then also our mystical connections, like I talked a little bit about, like our soul longing for oneness with Source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. So personally, your planets in wherever Pisces is, and the house that Pisces is in, could show you how to open up to your higher guidance a little bit more. And if that's something that you would like help looking at, certainly, mention in the comments below. You can reach out for a personal reading. But, that could be through prayer or art or music or meditation, or, it will be different for everybody, but it can be an indication of what will work best for you. Okay, so we also talked about how the full moon is like a balance between Pisces and the opposite side of Virgo, which is right over here, right? Where the sun is, conjunct the south node. So, what types of things does Virgo represent? So, Virgo is mutable earth. So, in the mundane, the collective, it is basically the infrastructure of our everyday life. Labor and workers, especially in the service, healthcare, office, and technical jobs. It governs healthcare and medicine, so hospitals, doctors, pharmacies, nutritionists, things like that. It governs our workforce structures, so employment, unions, white-collar and skilled service workers, food systems, agriculture, food safety, and nutrition. It rules technology and data, so systems that organize information, software engineering, and office management. It rules sanitation and the environment, so cleanliness, public health, disease control, and economy at the daily survival level, wages, cost of living, bills, essentials. On a more personal level, it is, where we act with precision, order, and practicality. So it's the opposite of Pisces, the disillusion and flow of Pisces. So in our health and the body, it rules our diet, our digestion, our daily routines and hygiene. With work and service, it rules the work we do on a daily basis, how you serve others, and just overall being useful, how you are useful. Details and discernment. So this is, where we use our brains to notice patterns. We organize, we edit, we analyze things. This is where we do that. Craftsmanship, it's where we really want to protect a skill and improve ourselves and refine ourselves. It's our mindset and our critical thinking abilities, our problem solving, our humility. That it's kind of how we talk to ourselves as well. And then the shadow side of it is if any of those things get out of control, right, then we might be more prone to anxiety, perfectionism, overwork, self-criticism or criticism of others, and being stuck in the busy work instead of having which I've been doing that today, by procrastinating. That's how I procrastinated on doing this video, was getting stuck in the busy work. Funny. So yeah, that's with this, like I just showed, the full moon overall, between the balance between Pisces and Virgo, is asking us to balance these two energies. Make sure we don't have too much Virgo or too much Pisces going on, and that we've got enough detail to figure things out, but we also are willing to go with the flow a little bit. So that gives us an overall idea of what we're being asked to balance during this full moon between the Pisces energy and the Virgo energy. Are we getting too detail-oriented, too focused on the busy work like I got stuck in today, or too focused on other things, too self-critical or too critical of others, etc.? Too focused on our work and not enough on our rest. Focused on our spirituality maybe, and meditating and things like that, and not focusing enough on, and getting lost in the ethers, and not focusing enough on our health and how we're feeding ourselves throughout the day, right? Are we getting lost in just whatever and forgetting to take care of ourselves? So it's really asking us to be balanced in those things. So then the next layer that I like to do is take it piece by piece and see what the moon the conversations that the moon and or sun are having with other planets. So we're going to look at that now. Okay, so the next layer, like we have right here, is the moon is, or the moon is conjunct the north node in Pisces, and the sun is conjunct the south node. So conjunct the north node in Pisces, the north node brings things in. So the full moon is all about kind of letting things go, but the north node wants to bring things in for us. It's where we are going next, our next evolution of us. It's where we're meant to be growing and learning, and where we're fated to learn and go next in our life. So there is this element of something fading coming in, but because it's paired with the full moon, because the north node is paired with the full moon, we need to let go of something to make room for what the north node is trying to bring in. So there's a culmination and revelation that forces growth into Pisces territory. That's the north node. So it's got that feeling. And then something is perhaps ending or is being revealed, but that will catapult us forward into a new spiritual or compassionate, more compassionate path. That would be the Pisces north node. So like an example flavor could be realizing an old dream, or like a crisis of faith that that pushes us to deepen trust, healing, or surrender somehow. So then, before getting into the other conversations, just to pull in this part, so the Virgo Pisces eclipse axis themes is because the sun is conjunct the south node down here. So we want to avoid being overly focused on details. That's what we're being asked to let go of. Asked to let go of control. And then it's showing us where we are too focused perhaps on productivity and survival concerns. So we can see this in the collective right now, right? There's a lot of layoffs, a lot of rising costs, a lot of job insecurity, a lot of talk about, can I afford this? And then can I afford groceries and electricity? Like, it's all those types of worries and things coming up. Pisces, where the north node is with this full moon, is asking us to lean into compassion, creativity, spirituality, trust, and faith in collective solutions rather than trying to micromanage everything. So of course we have to, especially if you are one facing a job loss or something like that, like, it's very real questions. Can I afford groceries and electricity and things of those? But we also, this is where we have the opportunity to get creative and lean on our communities and lean on our faith and get creative and come up with solutions. And I think this is part of, which I'll get into later, but part of how we are collectively going to make the shifts that we all are dying to make. And, it is unfortunate that we are being kind of forced into these through this eclipse season, through job layoffs and things like that. But a lot of times the growth that we need, either individually or collectively, comes through being forced into it instead of choosing it by choice. And that is one reason why I do love astrology, is because it kind of gives us a heads up. It gives us the bird's eye view, and allows us to see things with that silver lining and to kind of maybe prepare and things like that. So, yeah. the balancing act right now is to not get lost only in the Virgo worry loop of the cost, the layoffs, the chaos that is going on with these systems collapsing, but don't drift into the Pisces denial and escapism that it can lead to as well. So we're being asked to integrate and balance these energies of facing material concerns while also opening up to collective compassion, creativity, and new ways of living and working. So now let's look at some of the other conversations that are having. So a big important one is that Saturn here is retrograde, and it just moved on September 1st back into Pisces. So, and it'll be there for 5 months before it moves back into Aries. And this is big, number one, because it's at the time of this full moon lunar eclipse, it's at the 29th degree. It will go back to the 25th degree, but at this time it is at the 29th degree, which is one of the critical degrees in astrology. And this degree is all about closing out, cycles ending, structures. Saturn is structures, so structures ending and collapsing, whether that be church structures, because it is in the Pisces energy, whether it be the systems that have been in place, a lot of letter agencies that have been keeping us in the dark about things, those types of systems ending, the propaganda and the lies and the cover-ups and things like that could be ending, hopefully. So yeah, it's just an additional energy of closing out here at the 29th degree. And Saturn is also, a few more things about Saturn, it is like father time, it is karma, it is reaping what we sowed, and boundaries. So in your own personal chart, right, this can be where you need more boundaries, like we talked about. It can be, if there's some karma or reaping what you sowed in wherever this falls in your chart. Like if there's something that, because Saturn had been in Pisces for 2.5 years, so if there are still lessons that you need to learn, for example, I know for me, it was going through my second house, which deals with money and values and finance and things like that, and there are definitely things that I still need to button down that I didn't do over the last 2.5 years, like get a budget dialed and stuff like that. So this is our opportunity to do that with Saturn going back in and teaching us those boundaries where we need boundaries, and to lay the foundation, build the foundation, and clean up, put boundaries in place where we need boundaries. And some of us have too many walls up and need to do the opposite thing of releasing boundaries. So you have about 5.5 months to work with in Pisces, finishing up any lessons that you maybe didn't finish learning over the last 2.5 years. And then once it moves back into that 0 degree Aries point, that is really the point where we overall are being asked to start these new beginnings and start the new version of us. So this is big. This is closing out this full moon lunar eclipse. We are being asked to close out whatever it is that we need to close out. Pull out those weeds, shine a light on them, pull them out. Don't be afraid to do that, so that the blessings of whatever the North Node is trying to give us and whatever it's trying to guide us towards, individually and collectively, we can do it. So, like we talked about as well, this full moon here conjunct the North Node is opposing the Sun conjunct the South Node. It also is here conjunct with Mercury, which rules both Virgo and Gemini. So Mercury rules how we think, how we learn, how we communicate with ourselves and others, our self-talk. how we process things, how we organize things. A lot of those Virgo themes that we talked about, but with the addition of communication, transportation as well. It rules transportation. So those things, those types of things, both in our personal life and collectively, are up for review basically with this lunar eclipse as well. So I'm feeling into this a couple ways, being in opposition that it is, feeling that perhaps we get some sort of information or news that is unsettling, maybe, that maybe makes us question our reality a little bit. Virgo is very much that physical reality, and Pisces is the disillusionment of it. So, and there is so much of that going on in the collective, questioning what reality really is right now, especially with all the AI stuff and all different sorts of topics. What is reality right now, right? So, and that's only going to continue, and the astrology is showing that. So, but on a more positive note, I see this as bringing to light ways in which our mindsets are perhaps out of balance and detrimental and too much in the negative or lower vibrational Virgo energies. So whether it's we're being too critical of ourselves or others, kind of like we talked about, if we are stuck in older routines and patterns, kind of along with that Saturn energy that we need to let go of, if we're too focused on needing to use our five senses rather than simply letting go and kind of free falling and having faith and trusting in what's going on, trusting that there is a higher divine plan and we just need to find our role in it. And in Virgo, with Mercury being there, it's also a focus on our health. I believe we're being asked to focus on, because the sun is, focusing light too, right? So focusing on our health routines and really that rest balance, right? Like, are we overworking? Are we allowing ourselves to rest enough? Because that's a big piece of health, right? Not only what we consume and our digestion and everything that we talked about, what we're putting into our mouth, the thoughts that we're putting into our head, all of those things take a big part in our health, but it also, we need to rest. We can't just do. Rest is a big piece to the health puzzle. So that's that. And then the next layer that we have, because I like to add on layer by layer. So the next layer is the trine that this full moon has to Jupiter in Cancer. And Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. So it is the ruler of this full moon lunar eclipse. And there's this beautiful conversation going on between the full moon, the north node, and Jupiter. And Jupiter is in its exaltation in Cancer. That's where it likes to be the best. That's where it has the most compassion, the most love, the most abundance and luck and things like that. So Jupiter overall, let's talk about what Jupiter overall brings and what it represents. It represents luck and abundance. It represents philosophy and religion and higher education, the morality, ethics. It represents publishing and spreading knowledge. It is very abundant. It represents prosperity and wealth and opportunities coming in. So not only do we have Jupiter bringing us opportunities, but we also have the North Node bringing us opportunities. It also rules long distance travel or adventure or broadening our horizons, whether that's physically or mentally. It does represent courts and judges and legal systems, religion, priests and spiritual leaders, teachers and institutions that give order and meaning, confidence, optimism, and faith. And on the more negative side, it does rule overindulgence, because whatever Jupiter touches, it expands. It's the great expander. It gives things. And self-righteousness, right? So too much ego. And it's in a sextile here with the sun, so there is the opportunity for a little bit of too much ego, but hopefully we can keep that in check. And then in Cancer, it's going to increase the things that Cancer represents. So empathy, compassion, nurturing both ourselves and others, intuition, our home and home life, real estate and land, food, emotional security. But on the negative side, it can also be very overprotective, difficulty letting go of the past, and seeking comfort instead of risk. And with the full moon being in, and the North Node being in Pisces, where we're being asked to fall into faith and trust, that wanting to stay too much in the comfort zone could be detrimental. So hopefully it's just something to watch out for, that could be a more negative manifestation. So on a collective level, and I'm giving this much detail just because there is so much going on in the news, and I want you to see how the astrology is supporting that on a collective level, so we can see what's going on a collective level, but also when I get to the by rising sign, that we can see how it is affecting us personally as well, and where we might fit into this larger puzzle. So stay tuned for that. So Jupiter in Cancer is representing like housing markets, real estate, agriculture, also with the idea of home and things like that. It can be about patriotism and national identity, and protecting the home base, protecting the borders, things like that. But with this balance between Pisces, new things coming in with the North Node, and Virgo, old things going out, and Jupiter expanding things, we could see losses in real estate, which we're starting to see. That would be the Cancer aspect. Workforce losses, which we're starting to see and have been seeing with Virgo, but it could amp up around, especially in the technology and healthcare and the industries that Virgo specifically represents. Detail-oriented things that AI might be replacing, repetitive tasks, things like that. Auto industry with Mercury. But then there could be expansion and patriotism. There could be boundaries where there have been boundaries lacking, which would be a Saturn and Pisces energy. There could be increases in spirituality, faith, compassion, oneness, the coming together energy, helping each other out. Maybe we'll see an increase in charitable organizations or alternative types of housing, because we have a bunch of homelessness, and with all these job layoffs, that could be increasing. So what are the creative ways that we're going to be able to deal with this and lean on each other, lean on that compassion, lean on that creativity part of Pisces, of how to get out of these problems that are being caused by things leaving with the South Node in Virgo. But this Jupiter energy, although it might be expanding things, again, I have faith that the divine has got our back. And so even though it might be coming in a lot, I feel like maybe it's because we need it. We need it to happen fast. We need it to happen a lot to wake us up, to wake more of us up collectively. And with Jupiter being a benefic and a giver of opportunity and luck and abundance and publishing and spreading knowledge and things like that, I feel like whatever losses are coming. There is new coming in, and that it is beneficial. That it is blessings, new creativity, new trust, new ideas in home, and in community, and just figuring out really the things that we need to feel emotionally secure, because Cancer is a lot about that. But the opportunities coming from the Cancer areas of your own chart, your own personal life, which we'll get into, but as well as overall. So those things like home, family, real estate, so that there might be some shifts that are actually really good and blessings for you that are coming in with this. I thought that I had this camera on, but I didn't. So we also want to look at the modern ruler Neptune and what it is doing. It is still in Aries. So Neptune is right here, and so that is the modern ruler of this eclipse. And so it's pointing us back to the Aries seeding point as well, right? That all these changes are a culmination of endings and new beginnings that are bringing us to, where do we really want to go? Where do we really want to go? What type of reality do we want to dream in and make real? And this, I believe this eclipse, we're being given a chance to kind of see that. Like we've had these two planets in Aries for a little bit, kind of getting a taste of where we might be able to go, what things are coming down the pipeline from the powers that be, what we might want to do in our own life, and now we're being given a chance to still focus on this while closing out what we need to, so that we can, when it gets time, we can go full force ahead with that. So that about sums it up. But I want to add some history, because I think it brings some richness and more flavor, and shows us that life is kind of like a spiral, right? Similar themes, but a different level. And hopefully, as part of the collective awakening, we are more aware now, and hopefully more and more of us are seeing that patterns repeat, and that everybody who wants to use astrology, which the elites of the world most certainly do. They use astrology, they use psychics, they use all of it to help push their agendas, and collectively, I think we don't want their agendas. So if we take control of our own lives, we can see what's coming, we can see how they want to use this astrology for their benefit, and we can be better informed and better prepared to fight back. That's how I view it. That's what gets me fired up about it. But so eclipses happen in I thought I transitioned to this one again. Eclipses happen in 18 and 9-year cycles. And so the last time that the North Node was in Pisces, like it is now, was 18 years ago. So most recently, though, it was in, we had an eclipse last September. So as far as some of the things that we talked about how Pisces rules water and oceans and rivers and things like that, and that eclipses, the kind of science behind it and how it affects gravity and weather and all those types of things. Last September was about the time we had all the flooding in North Carolina. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time around, but it is something to keep an eye on. But for you personally, was there anything going on last September that you might be feeling echoes of right now? Before that, the last time the North Node was in Pisces and we had eclipses, on this Pisces Virgo axis was between September 2006 to August 2007. So if you think back to what was going on in your personal life during that time period, again, that was September 2006 to August 2007, then you might be able to get some ideas of what might be showing up for you this time around, and maybe how you can make better use of whatever is showing up for you, or not to be so surprised by it. Although, like we saw, Pisces and Virgo rules so many different things, and each house that it might fall in your personal charts rules so many things. So, and life is a constant spiral, just going to different levels. So there might be some echoes of what happened in 2006 to 2007, but it also could be that it is just completely different, but in the same set of things that those areas of your chart represent. And then the time before that was March 1988 to March 1989. Those ones I can't remember quite as much. I was a fairly young child, so I wasn't really into noticing what is going on right there. I can't think of anything big that happened, but I'll have to think on it some more, and I suggest you do too. Because what is coming to mind actually is on a completely different level of what was going on in 2006 to 2007. Anyway, so then there's 9-year cycles too, but that would be when the North Node would have been in Virgo and the South Node in Pisces. So it would have been similar themes, but a different flair, because new things would have been coming in the Virgo side, and we would have been asked to let go of some of the Pisces side. So it's, I feel like, more beneficial to focus more on the 18-year cycle to see the patterns. So then looking at history, right? So the 2006-2007, the most recent 18-year cycle, we had the 2006, in 2006, the housing bubble peaked. And by 2007, cracks were starting to show, with the first big mortgage lenders filing bankruptcy. And then by the summer of 2027, banks were freezing funds. Layoffs at that time, there were a lot of them, but they were mostly in the construction and blue-collar industries. Banking as well, since they were filing bankruptcy and everything. But there was a lot of layoffs in the construction and blue-collar trades. So definitely some similar themes. And then the aftermath, the housing bubble in 2008 and the market crash in 2008. And then in 1988 and 89, the Cold War began collapsing. USSR was withdrawing from Afghanistan in 1988, and then the Berlin Wall in 1989. There were also major spiritual religious revivals of New Age going on, and a lot of global meditation movements. And I have noticed that there are global meditation movements going on right now, as well as a renewal in things like spiritual and religious revivals, whether that is revivals in any type of religion, as well as revivals in learning more New Age type things, learning about astrology, learning about these types of things. There's movements for that. And then in that 1988-89 time period with the workforce, we had farm crises, and shifts in manufacturing, employment, and labor. This is when labor started moving toward globalization a little bit more. And now we kind of there's globalization, but also trying to bring things back in-house with Jupiter and the protection of boundaries, being overprotective of boundaries and bringing things in-house. So we can see some echoes, right? There's some echoes going on for sure. So think about these cycles in your own life now, as well as the bigger picture of our current world. So, actually, I want to go back to the chart real quick because, with Neptune ruling, being one of the co-present rulers, I guess, it is part of this, everybody's focused here, but it then is bringing in, because it's the ruler of this, it is bringing in this triangle as well and making that whole thing active during this full moon lunar eclipse. So we are getting a lot of Uranus retrograde and Gemini energy, as well as Pluto retrograde and Aquarius energy. So we'll get into that here in a minute a little bit as well as we continue this discussion. So with the rise in AI, which is kind of that Uranus and Gemini, being a massive part of the layoffs, not all of it, but definitely a massive part of it, with rising prices of everyday things, groceries are ridiculous, electricity is ridiculous, rising prices of energy, which also is probably likely to do with the rising costs of being able to power AI. The amount of electricity that AI requires is insane. The housing and auto bubbles that are going on right now and that are kind of starting to burst. Affordability of all type of concerns. And with the thought that the elites are using all of this to kind of keep us in check and usher in their police states, their control, the constant monitoring that they want to do, and the nefarious plans that we know that they are up to, how can we use this astrology to our advantage and choose a different outcome that basically takes them out and flips the story on their heads, and getting us out of the systems that they've created, right? How can we utilize, and I know free energy is out there and different types of energy, like how can we discover that and utilize it? How can we opt out of their robots taking over everything, and technology and AI, unless we decide that it serves us, but not the other way around, right? What would be the practical advice? And, with all the astrology like we've seen, what can we do to take more control? So, to kind of sum it up a little bit, the North Node in Pisces is the direction forward, which is to lean into faith, creativity, compassion, intuition, really diving into our intuition, because with so much out there that we don't know whether it's real or not, like the only way we're going to be able to know is to sit with ourselves and see what feels right. Community, a lot of community, building more communities and that oneness and having spiritual courage. And then with the South Node in Virgo, releasing the need to overwork. With layoffs, clearly people are going to be releasing that, but for those that are working, releasing the temptation to overwork, releasing perfectionism, releasing the dependence on the system to tell us how to function, and releasing obsessions with routines and metrics, and I'm only smiling because I really struggle with the overwork and perfectionism piece of this, and have done so today. So it's not just about survival skills, which is more that Virgo energy anymore. Those are the comfort zone and the fallback. Now it's about trusting and building more Piscean models. So decentralized compassion, spiritual sovereignty, intuition-based leadership, shared resources, dissolving boundaries of isolation so we form networks of care. So one of those where we have too many walls up, right? Like we used to know all of our neighbors. Now how many neighbors do we know and interact with, right? It's a different world, and we kind of need to go back to that community. And the chart supports all this. So Jupiter in Cancer trining it. This is abundance through family, local communities, food, and our homes. The Uranus retrograde in Gemini, trining Pluto in Aquarius. This is grassroots innovation, collective tech power, equaling people-powered networks, so using the tech to our advantage. Neptune retrograde in Aries, sextiling Uranus in Gemini. So this is kind of the courage to dream and act on radical new paradigms like free energy, new communities, and parallel economies, which I think we're gonna start seeing. And then Pluto sextile Saturn in Pisces. This is the restructuring and dissolving institutions, and we get to imagine into existence the replacements that we want for those types of things. So for practical advice, with the North Node and Pisces in mind, again, follow Piscean North Node themes as a compass. Meditate, pray, visualize the world you want to create and really feel it. Let intuition guide your practical Virgo steps. So that balancing between the Virgo and the Pisces energy. Building compassion-driven communities, like I said, and release those Virgo shadow sides. The fear of survival, like the scarcity loops, over-fixating on jobs, routines, and the grind when those very systems are dissolving. And we need to learn how to let them dissolve, and then trying to perfect instead of flow. So, and opting into the Pisces style sovereignty. So with spiritual tech, leaning more into energy medicine, sound healing, meditation, intention, communal tech. So open source, decentralized, cooperative economies. Free energy plus creative imagination, so literally imagining and manifesting parallel systems. This is how we are going to break the cycles and to flip the storyline on its head. Now, let's go through it by sign. Okay, so we'll start with Aries and Aries rising. So, first we're gonna take these in steps. We're gonna look at what past cycles might have been for you, where we're at now, and what you're being called to do, basically, how you're being called to show up. So the past cycles, so this is really focusing on your 12th house and 6th house. So the past cycles may have shown up as health routines, work-life balance issues, and hidden burnout patterns may have surfaced. Many Aries risings were perhaps pushed into retreats or spiritual awakenings, or periods of forced rest. So the lesson: you can't control everything through work and routine. sometimes surrender is the path to healing. So then looking at this cycle, and let me know in the comments below if that resonates with where you experience those 18 and how you experience those 18-year previous cycles, 1988 to 89 and then 2006 to 2007. So then where you are now, this cycle, so the North Node is calls you inward again in Pisces, and your role is to be the pioneer of spiritual courage, showing others that it's okay to slow down, heal, and trust inner guidance. Don't get lost in Virgo's overwork. Instead, create sustainable routines that support your spiritual renewal. So then, we have Jupiter in Cancer here, which indicates that home, family, and roots are going to be your anchor, and abundance will flow through food, land, and creating safe emotional spaces for you. And then the mini grand trine, so Uranus in Gemini in your 3rd house, is asking you to innovate your daily work and health with new tech or healing tools, perhaps. And then Pluto in Aquarius in your 11th house is transforming your community, your networks, your friendship groups, things like that. And then Saturn and Neptune on this Pisces Aries axis, but mostly focusing on the 12th house here, is asking you to discipline your mystical practices and bring visions into form. So your practical advice is to do some more daily meditation and journaling and turn insights into repeatable systems or healing practices that you can share with others. So your part is to be the pioneer of spiritual courage and to show others that it's okay to slow down, heal, and find their inner guidance. So Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, but mostly Rising. This is focusing on your 11th and 5th house. So in past cycles, you may have found that friendships, your 11th house, and groups shifted dramatically. You may have outgrown old circles, found spiritual communities, or learned tough lessons about creative expression, that's the 5th house, versus belonging, right? And there may have been some tension there. So then this cycle, your role is to weave compassion into communities. Lead or join groups dreaming of new ways to live. Like use your creativity here in the 5th house to show others new ways to relive. Release the Virgo perfectionism around creativity or children. It's not about being flawless, it's about being inspired. Let the 5th house inspire you. And then Jupiter in Cancer, here in your 3rd house, is your local networks, your siblings, and communications bringing the abundance. So perhaps getting into teaching, writing, this is commerce, and connecting in your neighborhood might be keys for you to bring in this abundance and these new opportunities. Focusing on your social network and things like that. And then the mini grand trine that we have Uranus in Gemini in your 2nd house, which is innovating how you earn and communicate. 2nd house rules throat chakra, so you've got a lot dealing with your communication here. Pluto in Aquarius in your 10th house is career, so your public role and career might be going through some power shifts. Pluto is power and transformation, so aligning you to things that are more aligned spiritually and things like that. And then Saturn and Neptune will be moving into the 12th house, or the 11th house. So building disciplined spiritual communities. So the practical advice is to start small with the Virgo detail and the creativity and things like that. Maybe schedule some regular meetups, some group projects, and creative collaborations, and then let Pisces shape the compassionate visioned networks, right? So start small, bring this creativity kind of into life with regular group meetups, spiritual projects, and then bring the compassion and the spiritual. So your part is to be the builder of community abundance, pooling resources, gathering people, and structuring joy. Good luck. Okay, then we have Gemini rising, which is your 10th house focus and 4th house. So work-life balance issues for you guys. So looking at past cycles, perhaps there was some career direction dissolved and reformed. Family obligations may have clashed with your ambitions, and many Gemini risings may have experienced spiritual callings in their work life with these previous cycles. So this cycle, you're being called to step into compassionate leadership. Release the Virgo over control of your home life. And bring the Piscean vision into your public role. Lead through inspiration, not micromanagement, both at home and at work. And then Jupiter in Cancer is in your 2nd house of material things and abundance. So abundance flows through your skills and values. Prosperity comes when you align your career with your true worth. And then the mini grand trine that's being activated. So we've got Uranus in Gemini here in your 1st house. So this is radically reinventing yourself, right? Uranus is where we want to step out of the box. So you're being called to reinvent yourself. Step out of who you have been known to be and be okay with that. It might be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's what you're being asked to do. And then we have Pluto in Aquarius in your 9th house, which is transforming your worldview and perhaps providing opportunities for travel and teaching. Okay, so then Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is asking you to build a career rooted in spiritual service. So practical advice would be to create daily Virgo grounding rituals at home, and then channel that stability into the public roles that inspire collective trust. So your part is to be the visionary voice in the public sphere, communicating truth and inspiring new systems. Good luck. We definitely need you. Okay, so now Cancer risings. This is focusing on your 9th and 3rd house. So, you may have experienced in past cycles shifts in education, travel, or worldview. You may have had spiritual teachers show up, or maybe crises that altered your spiritual beliefs. Daily communication patterns also likely shifted in these previous cycles. And this current cycle, what you're being asked to, your role is to become a teacher, a philosopher, or a guide. Release the Virgo, and that's all, the ninth house. Release the Virgo over analysis in daily chatter. So if you're if you're too much on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or those things, it's time to release that and focus on inspiring with spiritual wisdom and vision. So don't just mindlessly scroll, don't just mindlessly contribute, but be the guide, be the leader. So Jupiter in Cancer in the 1st house, this is you. You are the abundance. Live your truth boldly and opportunities will open up for you. And then the mini grand trine, we have Uranus in Gemini activating your 12th house here, which is perhaps you're going to start having, if you haven't already, radical spiritual downloads. So especially during this lunar eclipse, if there are any downloads coming to you, make sure to write them down. And you could be having, you more than other signs could be having a lot of, psychic abilities opening up and things like that. So harness it if you are. And then Pluto in Aquarius in your 8th house. You are having transformations around shared resources, intimacy. This is also where we do a lot of our deep inner work. Like, it's our inner transformation, how vulnerable we are willing to be with ourselves as well as others. And just deep personal transformation. So you are having that. Transformation in perhaps debts and things like that is a very financial house. And then in the 9th house with Saturn here in the 9th house, being asked to build disciplined new belief systems. So the practical advice would be to use Virgo detail to structure your writing or teaching, but infuse it with the Piscean compassion and become a voice of hope, which we all need in the world right now. So your part is to be the nurturer of new philosophies, guiding others to see hope and meaning when they perhaps can't. Yes, we need you. Okay, so Leo and Leo rising. So this is activating your 8th and 2nd house. So, you may have had your past cycles may have shown up as lessons around intimacy, shared resources, and trust. There may have been a lot of financial ups and downs that tested your values and stability. The 8th house can be house of losses as well, grief, going inside and being, transformation of self, seeing how willing you are to be vulnerable with yourself as well as vulnerable with others. So there could have been some of those types of things as well. And a lot of shadow work, right? And then this cycle, your role is to release survival fears, it's the 2nd house, and lean into the shared spiritual wealth. Pisces North Node calls you to transform intimacy and shared resources into compassionate, trust-based exchanges. And then Jupiter in your 12th house here is indicating that there might be hidden blessings and spiritual connection, that those hidden blessings and spiritual connection may be your anchor. Prosperity might flow the best to you through prayer, meditation, and rest. So if you are in a phase right now where you're being called to rest, like Jupiter in the 12th house wants a lot of rest. So if you are feeling tired, if you are feeling like you want to meditate more, if you are feeling like you want to be in prayer more or dive into those types of things, do it. That is what you are being called, and that is where your abundance is going to come to you, and these new opportunities are going to come to you through rest. So then the mini grand trine, so Uranus and Gemini is in your 11th house. So you might be having radical shifts in your collective networks, your friendship groups, new types of people coming in and helping. Pluto is over here in Aquarius in your 7th house of relationships, so you might be having a lot of transformation going on in the types of partnerships that you are engaged in And whether that is romantic partnerships or business partnerships or friendships, just the type of close one-to-one connections is going through a transformation for you right now. And then Saturn working here in the 8th house as well is asking you to develop like new rules and boundaries for shared resources, either building up of boundaries or tearing down boundaries. Either way, that is what you're being called. So the practical advice would be to use this Virgo detail to budget and plan 2nd house themes, but trust the Piscean flow in shared wealth and intimacy, and practice spiritual abundance. So your part is to be the guardian of shared resources, teaching others how to trust, share, and transform scarcity into abundance. And that is definitely something that we are going to need your leadership on with a lot of these job losses that are happening. Alright, so now we have Virgo rising. This is happening in your 7th house and 1st house axis. So this is kind of all about you. So past cycles, you probably had partnerships that were karmic, transformative, or dissolving. Your identity was most likely challenged, and you couldn't go it alone. You needed those partnerships and things like that. It's that balance between you and partnerships. So then this cycle, your role is to grow through relationships, release self-criticism and hyper-independence, which is the Virgo South Node here. And then to step into compassion and spiritual growth through the bonds of partnership. So then we have Jupiter in Cancer in your 11th house of friendships. So Jupiter in Cancer in the 11th house. So this is focusing on your friends, networks, and collective projects. Those will be your anchor and where you will find abundance and perhaps opportunities. And then with the mini grand trine, you have Uranus in the 10th house here, which is indicating that you have a lot of career reinvention going on right now. Pluto in Aquarius in your 6th house is supporting a transformation of work and health. And then Saturn Saturn here in the 7th house of relationships is asking you to add discipline and compassion in your partnerships. So the practical advice would be to keep Virgo's discernment for boundaries, but lean into the Piscean surrender and compassion in your closest bonds. Both those of your 7th house, like your very close romantic partnerships, business partnerships, one-to-one like best friendships, but also your wider social circle of the 11th house as well. So your part is to be the healer of the everyday, showing how service, health, and meaningful work can be infused with compassion. Alright, so Scorpio, this is happening in your 5th and 11th house. So, 5th house is our creativity, our joy, our romance, our children. 11th house is friendships, community groups. So, in past cycles, the 2006 to 2007 and the 1988 to 89 cycles, you may have been noticing some tension between creative expression, romance, or children. They may have taken center stage, and friendship groups may have dissolved or shifted dramatically during those seasons. Let me know in the comments if that is true. This cycle, your role is to share joy and creativity, 5th house, with the collective, which is the 11th house. So release the Virgo South Node perfectionism in your networks, in your friendship groups. Don't try to control everything. But Pisces is calling you to embody more the mystical creativity and compassionate joy into your networks. Jupiter in Cancer here in your 9th house, is bringing abundance through teaching, publishing, and travel. So if that's something you've been wanting to do, do it. Uranus in Gemini here in your 8th house. You might be undergoing radical changes in your shared resources. Pluto here in Aquarius in your 4th house of home. You may have a lot of transformation and changes going on in your home and family right now, and that's okay. It's expected. Roll with the flow. And then Saturn here coming in to your 5th house as well, kind of being asked to spiritualize creativity and joy. So the practical advice for you would be to lean into the Virgo detail to help you manage group projects, but lead with the Piscean creativity and playfulness. So be the artist and guide, especially with Jupiter here in the 9th house, right? Offer joy, love, and creativity as fuel for the collective rebirth. Okay, Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So this is happening in your 4th and 10th house. So work-life balance. So in previous cycles, you may have noticed shifts in your family life, home life, and roots, ancestry, things like that. And careers demanded practical Virgo focus, sometimes clashing with your emotional needs. So let me know in the comments below if these previous cycles were a real struggle with this work-life balance, and if you did notice any clashes or just shifts in the home and family. So your role this cycle is to anchor spirituality in family and ancestry. Release the Virgo over focus on career status. The status kind of doesn't matter. Focus on the 4th house of home and family. And then we've got Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house. So your anchor is going to be share, and where you're going to get your abundance is from shared resources, intimacy, being willing to be really intimate, and trust-based wealth will be your anchor. So then the mini grand trine that's being activated, so we have Uranus in Gemini in your 7th house. So there might be radical changes in partnerships. Maybe you're having different kinds of best friendships, different kinds of romantic partners, different kinds of business partners showing up for you. Pluto in Aquarius in your 3rd house of communication and neighborhoods and things like that. This is where you're going to be having a lot of transformation in your communication, perhaps how you use social media, things like that, and in your local communities, how you interact with it, and perhaps even transportation, short-term, short-distance travel, things like that. And then Saturn coming in here and working with this energy as well. You're being asked to kind of spiritualize your home and family roots, to really build structures around that. Maybe bring prayer into the home or things like that. Build the foundation. So your practical advice is to use the Virgo detail to structure career projects, but prioritize the Piscean family and home-based spirituality. So your part would be to be the anchor of spiritual family, grounding compassion into our homes and into our communities. That is a big challenge, and I wish you luck. We do need that in the world. Alright, so my Capricorns, this is happening, this lunar eclipse is happening in your 3rd, 9th house, so communication, learning, teaching, short-term, short distance and long distance travel, it's on that axis. So in the past cycles, there may have been themes around education, communication, or sibling dynamics that shifted, and old belief systems were most likely challenged. So this cycle, your role is to communicate compassion and vision daily. 3rd house is our daily things, daily, how, also 6th house, but they both are very much how we move about our day. Release Virgo's obsession with perfecting belief systems. So then Jupiter in Cancer in your 7th house is indicating that partnerships will anchor in your abundance. That's exciting. Build alliances rooted in care. And then the mini grand trine, we have Uranus in Gemini in your 6th house of health. So you might be experiencing or coming up with innovation in work and health. Pluto in Aquarius in your 2nd house. You likely have a lot of transformation of your finances and values. You may be noticing things starting to shift there. And then with Neptune moving back here for the next 5 months in your 3rd house, this is having your communication kind of building up spiritual communication. So perhaps you also, along with some of the other signs, are getting more psychic abilities coming online, things like that. So if that is happening for you, definitely tap in, tune in to it. And then practical advice, so use the Virgo detail to organize your studies, but the Pisces North Node is asking you to speak with compassion and imagination. So your part is to be the messenger of hope, using words, stories, and ideas to guide others with clarity and compassion. So this is a big ask, but you can do it. All right, so Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. This is focusing on your 2nd and 8th houses. So financial houses, values, resources, intimacy, things like that. So in the past cycles, you may have noticed themes around money, values, and self-worth were perhaps being tested, and shared debts or intimacy required a lot of discernment. So this cycle, your role is to redefine values with compassion. Release the Virgo South Node obsessions with debts or power struggles, and embrace the Piscean faith in owning your own worth. Jupiter in your 6th house of health, habits, daily routines. So your abundance will come through service and health routines. So your work and just taking care of yourself and developing routines will bring you your opportunities. And then with the mini grand trine energy, we have Uranus and Gemini in your 5th house, which is radically shifting your creativity and perhaps having playful and creative breakthroughs, or breakthroughs with your children, right? 5th house can be so many things, or romance, things like that. But there will be radical breakthroughs with creativity and play. And then Pluto in Aquarius in your first house. This is personal empowerment. You are going through a personal revolution, a personal transformation. You are becoming the new and improved version of you. And this Saturn moving back into your second house is asking you to spiritualize your money and values. So the practical advice would be to budget with the Virgo detail, but root in the Piscean spiritual abundance and higher values. Don't get caught in the earthly values, right? The materialism. So your part is to be the innovator of values, showing others how to live with integrity, compassion, and new definitions of wealth. We are definitely going to need that going into the future. New definitions of wealth and abundance. And last but not least, we have Pisces. And this is happening in your sign and your seventh house of relationships. So self versus other, right? So in the past cycles, you may have had your identity dissolved and reformed. Partnerships may have been tested, or karmic bonds may have appeared. Let me know. Let me know if what the previous cycles did bring for you. So your role this time is to embody the dream. Release the Virgo South Node over dependence on partners and step into your spiritual identity fully. And then you have Jupiter in Cancer here in your fifth house of romance, creativity, and children. So you will find abundance through creativity, joy, romance, and children. Those are the areas that will help bring forth the opportunities, the biggest opportunities and blessings to you. So then we have the mini grand trine here. So we've got Uranus and Gemini in the fourth house. So there might be radical changes going on for you in your home and family. You also have Pluto in Aquarius in your 12th house. So you're getting a spiritual and subconscious rebirth. So that is perhaps a little daunting, but also very exciting. And then Saturn moving back here to your first house. You're being asked to bring discipline, combine discipline and mystical self-expression. So the practical advice would be to keep the Virgo detail of keeping partnerships clear, but the Pisces North Node is asking you to live boldly as a spiritual pioneer. So your part is to, like I said, be the embodiment of the dream, living as a spiritual pioneer and showing others how to lead with compassion and imagination. No small task, but we know you're up for it. Okay, so that is what I have for you today. If you have enjoyed this, please give me a like, a comment, or subscribe. And I'd love to hear what types of I'd love to hear what your rising sign is and what you recollect going on for you in the 2006 to 2007 cycle, as well as the 88 to 89 cycle, if you are old enough for that one. I'd love to hear what was going on for you then. So comment below with that. And then also, I just wanted to mention again that I have a course, a beginner's astrology course called Your First Astrology Course, where I take you from learning how to pull up your natal astrology chart, to learning about the planets, the signs, the houses, what they all mean, how to put it together, learning about your big three, and then at the end, finally, learning how to take things like this, lay it on top of your chart, and really see how this is hitting for you personally. So like looking at the degree points of what is going on in the chart that I was going over with you, and seeing if it's really interacting with anything in your chart very specifically, and then you'll know that this is going to be activating things for you in a more personal way. Because if these points are not hitting you personally, you're going to feel the energy, you're going to feel some shifts, you're going to feel the collective energy going on, but things may not happen for you as big as it might happen in other people's lives that share the same rising sign, for example. So, link for that will be in the description box below. I also am starting a Patreon membership where I will be giving 20-minute readings every month, birth chart readings covering a different topic every month. So it's kind of like a membership to get to know yourself better every month. This first month in September, we are going to be focusing on the elements and just looking at the balance of earth, air, fire, and water in your chart and what that means. So if that is something that you would be interested in participating in, again, link will be in the description box below. I hope to see you there. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon.